Hello, and welcome to Data Science Wednesday. My name is Tessa Jones, and I'm a data scientist with Decisive Data. And today we're going to talk about the data science lifecycle, which is really important to understand because if you're going to engage in a data science project, it's really nice to understand how your data scientist thinks, because it will really make the process a lot better and just generally more successful. So we have roughly 6 different phases in the cycle that we're going to talk about today. The first one is exploring the business. It's really important to make this a cooperative phase where the business person and the data scientist are really working together to understand what are the main objectives of the business, what are the desired things to happen with the business, what are the pain points of the business, all these different things. Through all of that, you will define a really good question to answer, which is really important because if you don't have a good question, you're probably not going to have a very good project. So once you have a pretty good question defined, you want to go into data discovery. Do you have the data that you need to even answer that question? Is there data missing? This is pretty important to really be concise about in the beginning because sometimes you can kind of skip over this phase and then you can be far into a project and you realize you don't have all the data that you need to answer the question, and then you're kind of in trouble. So once you know you have the data you need and you have a really good question, then you go into data prep. And depending on how sophisticated your business is, this could be a really big step or it could be a really small step. In the most ideal situation, you're usually just taking a couple of different tables and joining them together and organizing them in the way that the data scientist would like. So then we get into the data science process part of things. First, we do the exploratory analysis phase. And if you've watched any of our past videos, you would see the episode we did on diagnostic analytics. That's really reminiscent of what's going on in here. We're really trying to figure out how our different variables are related to one another, what their distributions look like, what correlates to what, really just trying to get a really good view of what's going on with our data. After we understand that, we go into model design, which is where we really put our thinking hats on and we want to understand or define the mathematical approach that will most likely give us the results that we want. We really have to consider everything that we've seen in here in order to do a good design. Once we have it designed, we go ahead and build the model. Usually we program this in a language like R or Python, like something like that. And once we have that all built out, then we deploy it into the business process so it can be used by the business person. All of this fits really nicely with the scientific method because it allows us to iterate through. The scientific method is all about hypothesis testing. So if you have a question and you think that this particular variable is going to give you the answer that you need, you go through this cycle to test it. You say, well, I think it's going to work, and then you build it in the model, and then you see whether it did or did not work, or if it gave you the results that you were trying to get. So let's take Tammy, for example. Tammy's working with a data scientist, and she's an executive at a retail store chain. And what she really wants to do is optimize her prices because she really wants to drive her revenue up and get the most bang for her buck for every product that she has. She wants to define this for thousands of products over hundreds of stores. So this is no small task. So once you've figured this out with her, you know what she wants, you find the data that you want, you prep it, and you go through this process. And oftentimes you think that you know what's going to be really important in terms of how to optimize pricings, and it just won't give you the answer that you need. Or you go through this process and you find out that, wow, we have different customers that need to be treated differently within the model, but we don't have enough information about that. So you might have to go all the way back up here and discuss with Tammy, okay, how do these different clients look? Do-it-yourselfers versus people who are buying in bulk, contractors, things like that. And you really have to get a definition, and then you have to go through and find the data, and then you have to go through this whole hypothesis testing again to see if you were right. Is there in fact a big difference between customer types, and how will it impact the model results? So once you get really satisfied with the model results you created, you go ahead and you deploy it. You integrate it into the business, and then you're ready to go. You can just deploy the prices that you want that are most optimal to hundreds of stores for thousands of products, which is pretty amazing. Thanks for joining us.